Once, almost all Japanese words were of native Japonic origin. Then Japan realized the outside world exists, and thought, their languages are pretty cool, we should borrow some words from them. Enter Classical Chinese. The various Chinese dynasties of the past had great political and economic influence across East Asia, and this included Japan. As such, Classical Chinese texts were brought to Japan, and alongside them, a method of reading Chinese characters with Japanese sounds was developed, called onyomi. Originally, these onyomi were used just to read aloud Classical Chinese without dealing with the interesting way Middle Chinese was likely pronounced, but over time, many Classical Chinese words got borrowed into Japanese as Sino-Japanese. These borrowings primarily used the onyomi readings of kanji, as opposed to being read as they would for native Japanese words, referred to as kunyomi readings. While onyomi readings were modified to better fit the sounds of Japanese, they ended up introducing new sounds into the language. Syllables with a y glide started appearing in Chinese loans, such as kya, kyu, kyo. Two vowels could be next to each other without a consonant in between, which was disallowed in Old Japanese. Long vowels were introduced, and the coda nasal ng started appearing. So sequences like hai, ku, ki were also introduced. It's hard to imagine the Japanese language in the modern day without these features. And personally, the beautiful sounds of Japanese are what inspired me to start learning the language 9 years ago. I've been slacking off learning the language for a while after reaching a B2 level, but thanks to Migaku, it's been easy to jump back in. Migaku is an immersion tool with a mobile app and browser extension that lets you consume media in your target language while easily keeping track of what words you're learning through them and conveniently turns them into flashcards for daily review. Pretty much anything works with Migaku. Streaming services like Netflix and Disney+, as well as every single YouTube video ever published in the languages that Migaku supports. Migaku also recommends target language content to watch based on your level. It works well with social media, and thanks to its great OCR features, even with physical books and signage. With all these options, Migaku is very flexible for pretty much any language learning method. The app assesses your level of learning based on a quick vocabulary quiz, and this was very useful to me as someone rusty with Japanese, but was at a high enough level to where starting from zero would have felt unfun. Sign up for Migaku now using the link in the description for 50% off the lifetime plan and an additional free month of easy and convenient learning. Syllables in Old Japanese could only have a consonant and a vowel. The only variation on this was that the first syllable of words could start without a consonant. Although present in the language, native Japanese words also didn't start with the consonants ba, da, ga, za, or ra. They only appeared between vowels, and it was later through Sino-Japanese that they started appearing in word initial position. You can still notice this with modern Japanese, where the majority of words descended from Old Japanese, and as such share its traits. There are native Japanese words that break these rules nowadays, but in these cases they were either coined after onyomi changed which sequences of sounds could possibly appear in a Japanese word, such as with chan, or the onomatopoeia pyong pyong, or some other sound shift happened between then and now, such as doko, coming from idoko. For many centuries, the majority of Sino-Japanese words came directly from Classical Chinese, but there are various examples of Sino-Japanese words that were coined in Japanese and didn't come from a Sinitic language. These are called Wassei Kango, literally Japan-made Chinese words, and examples of them include dango and ninja. The Sino-Japanese onyomi readings have several characteristics that occur much more often in them than native Japanese kunyomi, namely the vowel sequences e, o, u, I, and ui, glides ya, yu, yo, the coda ng, and other times the final mora being ku, tsu, and less often ki or chi. They also start with ma or na, and end with plain e or o far less often than native Japanese words. For example, ase is of native Japanese origin, while ase is Sino-Japanese. Words like uma, ume are actually from Middle Chinese, but were adapted into Japanese more like native words, and as such are counted as kunyomi. In 1543, the first Portuguese traders arrived in Japan, and through the next century, many Portuguese words entered Japanese. Pan, koppu, tabako. Among these loanwords is not arigato, which did not come from Portuguese obrigado, as some claim. Due to their association with Christian missionaries, the Tokugawa shogunate banned Portuguese traders from the country, and gave exclusive European trading rights to the Dutch, who were not interested in missionary work, and they were specifically stationed on the artificial island of Dejima near Nagasaki starting in 1641. Their arrangement was interesting. There would only be a few Dutch inhabitants on the island, and they were essentially quarantined and only allowed to communicate with a few specially trained Japanese-Dutch interpreters, the only ones in the entire country allowed to learn Dutch. And this job of interpreting for the Dutch was a hereditary position passed down within a few select families, and both them and the Dutch were under strict supervision. Still, even under these circumstances, many words from Dutch entered Japanese, particularly terms related to items from traders, such as
ゴム、ガラス、アルコール、コーヒー、暖部。
Starting in the 1720s, restrictions on the import of European books were relaxed, and various scientific and medical terminology entered the Japanese language through Dutch books. And after the Sakoku era ended in the 1850s, there was an explosion in Dutch learning by the Japanese, though by the end of the century, this wasn't coming primarily from Dutch. During this era, and especially the latter half of the 1800s, many Western concepts were introduced to Japan, but while the 1500s and 1600s saw foreign concepts loaned directly from European languages, during the 1700s and 1800s, Sino-Japanese words were coined to represent them instead. An example of this is the word for telescope being changed from
テレスコープ、
which came directly from Dutch, to the Sino-Japanese
望遠鏡、
literally long-distance viewing lens. Most coined Sino-Japanese words for foreign concepts were brand new, while others were repurposed classical Chinese words, such as
民主、
for democracy, the original meaning of which was ironically people's lord, in other words, a monarch. Many of these Wasei Kango then made their way back to the Chinese languages and others in the Sinosphere. An example was the word for telephone,
電話、
coined in Japanese, and then using the equivalent characters but with different readings, was loaned in as dianhua in Mandarin, zhonghua in Korean, and dian thuai in Vietnamese. This is comparable to how the word was originally coined in English, using the ancient Greek roots tele and phone, and then was loaned back into modern Greek. The era between the Meiji Restoration and World War II saw various loanwords enter Japanese from German and English in equal amounts, and to a lesser extent from French. But after the war, the majority of loanwords have been borrowed from English, and less than a century later, several thousand English loans are listed in dictionaries. Many of these borrowings are unnecessary from a certain standpoint, since Japanese already has words for a lot of them, such as the meaning of
デスク、
from desk already being covered by the native word,
机。
but in many cases, Japanese people use English words because they think English is cool, like how some English speakers sometimes sprinkle French words into things, except this happens like 20 times more often with Japanese, especially in media. Similar to Wasei Kango, the past century has seen the appearance of Wasei Eigo, or English words made in Japan, out of two different English words, such as
テレビ、
meaning TV and
ゲーム、
meaning game, combining to form
テレビゲーム、
meaning video game. In Japanese, compounds can form out of words of different origins, such as
消しゴム、
for eraser, with keshi being a Japanese word meaning erasing, and gomu meaning rubber coming from Dutch. Another example is
満タン、
meaning full tank, with mang being Sino-Japanese and tang being short for tanku, from English. Oftentimes when English words are combined, they'll be shortened to just the first two kana per word, such as Pocket Monster being abbreviated as Pokemon. As with Sino-Japanese a millennia ago, the modern era of loanwords in Japanese has influenced the phonology of the language. Most noticeable, the syllables fa, fi, fe, and fo have started appearing in Japanese, whereas before only the syllable fu had that consonant sound. Other new sequences include she, che, je, syllables starting with tsa, such as tsa, syllables wi, we, wo appearing in the language after previously being lost by early modern Japanese, and marginally, the syllables t and d are appearing, after these sounds shifted to chi and ji during Middle Japanese. There has also been the very marginal sound va appearing for some speakers, but most pronounce it the same as ba, at least for now. Japanese has had a long and interesting linguistic history regarding words entering from other languages, and while the plurality of terms used in average everyday conversation are still of native Japanese origin, the language simply wouldn't be the same without influence from other languages.